Hello and welcome. Today, I'm hydrated AF, and I'll talk about my first impression of the Affliction League. It has been out since a solid week. I have played it a lot in the first 3 days of the league due to my live streams on Twitch, and then, fairly regularly throughout. And after playing the SRS Guardian build by Gassy, which I'll talk about in a different video, so subscribe for that, I have a few thoughts about the league. Let's talk about gameplay first. Right away, and brutally honest, I'm skipping it. Just like Crucible back then. My script was actually 6 paragraphs long, just talking about, the crazy, tanky, and powerful mobs, but here's the short version. I accept that tier 16s, the pinnacle mapping content, should be very hard and should be tough. Still, why do we have Uber bosses as magic mobs now? I truly don't think we should aim for that in the future, and one way to fix this issue is by giving the player the option to empower certain type of mobs. Wait, I'm talking about Sentinel League here. I think they're experimenting with a new way of empowering mobs, same with Delirium, but in a different, more obvious way that the player can choose and not choose. On one side, you can get the wisps that empower the mobs with increased quantity, rarity, or currency items, but then can't choose the mobs you want to empower? So it is a give and take, and more interesting than click F2 to spawn a Sentinel. Now, going into the content itself, the Wildwoods, I'm okay with that being tougher than the core game, but the issue is usually then in the regular maps, because I just want to finish it, get to the next map, and, get my loot. But I can't get to the next map if it takes me ages to kill the mobs, and oh, here comes the rare mob that just slaps my life away and rip my XP. It's just, So instead of just baby raging here are a few solutions that, others also came up with in the meantime. 1, please give us a button so we can leave the Wildwood. Just please, come on, man. 2nd, I want to see the wisps that I gathered in the Wildwoods outside of the Wildwoods. The reason for that is, if I run a map, for example, with 1,200 purple wisps, and I realize, wow, this is really bad. I hate my mapping experience. The next time, I will stop at 1,000 purple wisps, and, click the magic, get me out of here button. And 3rd, which is reworking half the league and the entire league concept, how about doing it in a way Delirium does it, with a reward threshold? For example, if I have 1,000 wisps of all the 3 types, then it has a higher likelihood empowering more rare and unique mobs, thus increasing the challenge for the players and juicers who want that, but also requiring the players to be more active in the Wildwood. And for the people who don't want to get annihilated by the map boss, they just don't do that and focus on maybe 1 or 2 wisps, and those wisps will then spread more evenly out across the entire map to the normal and magic mobs. So instead of juicing up 1 magic mob, how about spreading it out to the 5 other magic mobs around it? And 4th, they could have a bunch of wisps waiting in the map when you leave the Wildwood, and when you get closer to the wisps, they fly away from the player, run into the monster pack, explode, just like with the animation we already have, and empower that monster pack right there, Wait, I'm talking about Tormented Spirits, but better. Alright, my script had 6 paragraphs, now I have 7. Fuck. Anyhow, going away from the wacky negative things, what's positive in this league so far? Going through the Wildwood is kind of cool. The dark area you have to explore step by step, following some wisps, and maybe finding some fun areas, bosses, or even previous league content like the Harvest or Beyond area. Having new NPCs with the Azmiri background is also kinda cool. We haven't seen that a lot in the game. Gives the league mechanic a different vibe, because it's not just all demons. Now, speaking of the NPCs, we got new ascendancies, and I have gone for the charms right at the start, because every other option was either bad, required another click on my side, or had some insane restrictions. I know the Oath of the Magi, which gave a bunch of stats if you have no gems in some item slots, was really popular, but I couldn't take that because it felt so restrictive. I played SRS as a league starter, and, minion builds require all the sockets. I could have probably used that notable in some form, but then only half of it. At that point, before I struggle linking other items over my boots, I just use the charms and accept my league start to be the way it usually is. For the other ascendancy, pressing another button to curse the enemy or use bark skin thingy, whatever, it just felt weird, It didn't sound strong enough to require me to click again. Or every single unique or even rare mob. Going back to the charms, they felt great to use, because if I find a good one, or buy one, I can just slot it in and that's it. Like a better sanctified relic, Is it better? Yeah, then you use it. Done. I also found a random dude that sells unique items, which gave me some Kadiro vibes. Now for the final boss, the King of the Mists. Spoiler warning, click away or click this time on screen right now, skip ahead if you don't want to hear anything about it. So, it was surprisingly easy with the SRS. I can't really speak of the gameplay after just, one fight, because I just ran around like a headless chicken and he died off screen, kind of. Whoops. I think being on an ultra wide monitor also breaks the enemy AI most of the time. But don't tell Grinding Gear Games that. Shh, it will be our secret. Either way, I nearly died once because the boss teleported me and locked me into position, which was quite scary, losing control of your character for a really long time. Keep in mind, as a minion player, I'm more or less away from the damage he does, but to be honest, I couldn't even tell where the damage was coming from sometimes. I think there were some dot pulls on the ground, and obviously they hurt, so having 2 life flasks would have been helpful. For the people who are wondering if they can do it, I think a general advice would be, if your DPS and defense feels good against normal Cirrus, you should also be able to defeat the King of the Mists fairly easily. And with this, gameplay overall is fine. Nothing that I'm looking forward to be honest, not like Sanctum or Sentinel back then, but also not as bad as Crucible or Toda. Yes, I wasn't a Toda fan. I'll go into my final thoughts for that league in another video. Yeah, I'm really late. I know, I'm sorry about that. I'm working on a really long video on the main channel. Thankfully, in this league, we got a good amount of story and lore. I appreciate all the dialogue options from the Wildwood NPCs, as well as the few notes that can be found. They're always very cryptic, typical GGG stuff, and generally make you ask more questions than you had before. But I think this is the perfect amount of new lore and story bits. Of course, there are and will always be different leagues with different gameplay and different NPCs. Some leagues will have more NPCs, thus more lore and story, but I think for a league, this is a good amount that I kind of want every league from now on. Sentinel had no story, and Crucible, introducing us to the Titans, a brand new race, had one single note at the end, which felt very weak. I think Kalandra League was a bit better, but also not big enough. Sanctum was really good though, especially giving us a lot of answers to Sin and Innocent, as well as, fleshing out the Templars. Spoiler, they're very bad boys. There is one slight issue I have with this league, and I really hoped we solved this back in Kalandra League. When reading a note and listening to the voiceover, it stops the moment the window closes. I want to listen to the lore. Make it easier for me as a player. Please, GGG, I beg you. Something I very much care for is visuals, and it's just gorgeous, this league. I think they're nailing the look of the leagues for quite a while now, especially when it comes to like textures, lighting, and just overall monsters. I think Sanctum was the first time I realized how incredible the new textures look. Of course, I highly recommend using global illumination if you can, and accept the pretty junky drop in FPS. But I think the game looks gorgeous if turned on. Now, the dark parts in the Wildwood, is a bit much and sometimes difficult to go through, but in general I think it's fine. This overall league might be an experiment to limit player visibility for Path of Exile 2. I always think, how will we ascend in PoE 2? And I could imagine a forest that shifts and changes similar to the Labyrinth right now. We'll see what GGG is cooking up.
Left you a little present in the cell. Nothing to live to see. But I had the upper hand.
For the last part, and according to a study made by myself literally right now in the past few seconds, most streamers don't even know it exists. The sound. Wait, there's sound in this video game? Oh my god. Jokes aside, I recommend going through the Wildwoods multiple times to hear the different sounds, attacks, and of course the voice acting of the NPCs. In general, high quality as always, especially the creepiness as seen in this clip. I'll use it. It's mine now. What the heck was that sound? Oh hi! How are you doing? Dude, I was like wondering, that is not a normal sound. That is not a normal sound. Hearing the boss before it actually appeared, I flabbergasted me, might be the best word. Hope we get more of this in the future. Maybe a boss that just stumps on a cliff and then the camera zooms out towards it and then it jumps down into an arena. That would be kinda cool. The conclusion is, Affliction League is decent. The league mechanic makes things a bit too tough right now, but maybe as the weeks and months go by and my builds grow in power, I might go into the Wildwood more often and juice up my mapping experience. Still, I'm not a daily map farmer, and Affliction feels a bit like it, as it does add quite a bit of difficulty on top of the game. Thankfully, the core game is in such a good spot right now, you can just play a new league for hours and hours and ignore the league mechanic. Sounds a bit sad, and maybe they can solve this by balancing it, but if I remember correctly, Sanctum League was very similar and had the same issue until my build completely destroyed it. Beside the league itself, we do have transfigured gems, and it feels like every day someone finds a new, in quotes, busted interaction with the new gems. So it will be interesting what the community finds over the next 2 months. I will continue upgrading my SRS build, see how fun it can get, and maybe change to that Jungrion volatile dead build, which looks pretty good. Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Good luck on your build and loot drops. And don't forget to stay hydrated, gamers.